Filmmaking is something of a trial and error process. You will eventually make mistakes, and you learn from them. Hell, even recording audio for this video required several takes, due to this being a brand new mic. Anyways, on my first feature film, Another Day Closer to the Sun, I learned two very important lessons. Don't be afraid to cut scenes. Pacing is extremely important. The reason I severely trimmed down my 62-minute long feature to make a 12-minute long short is because I wanted to remove scenes that were unimportant and didn't serve the plot or story. A whole 50 minutes were removed from the film, and it works just as well, if not better. And number two, you can't be in two places at once. I casted myself as the lead of the movie. That meant I would be both in front of the camera and behind the camera as a director. This led to disastrous results. For example, the camera was out of focus for certain shots, and the camera had to be on a tripod for the majority of the movie. Since then, I've only acted in my own movies out of pure necessity, whether it was due to an actor not showing up that day or not knowing enough people to play the role. Otherwise, I love being behind the camera at all times. On my third and upcoming feature, Wayward Sons, I learned two extremely important lessons. Write a script. I know, it sounds basic and rather obvious, but it was honestly an experiment to see if we can make a movie without a script, and ultimately, it failed. Take your time when planning a movie. I relied so much on my actors to essentially write the dialogue for me. There wasn't even an outline, let alone a full-fledged script. And that's not filmmaking. That's called being lazy. So, what happened? Wayward Sons is an upcoming horror film directed by me, and it stars Joseph Leffler-Bell and Nick Richards. I've had the pleasure of working with both Joe and Nick on my last feature, Pesticide. The production of Pesticide was so massive and overwhelming. I definitely enjoyed making the movie, don't get me wrong, but I was definitely getting burned out in the process. Having to manage a cast and crew of over 30 people was a huge undertaking at the time, and it was the largest production I've ever worked on at this point. I really wanted to take a step back and go for a much smaller and sort of free-flowing vibe with my next film. So, instead of having 20 characters, we only have 2. The plot of the film is rather simple. It follows 2 brothers, Robert and Todd, as they both go on a hiking trip together. However, they quickly become lost and struggle to find their way back home. The concept and idea for this film has been in the back of my brain since production started on my first feature, Another Day Closer to the Sun, and for a while the setting of the film was constantly changing and evolving. At one point, the film was titled Dear Eileen, and it followed about half a dozen lost American soldiers who were fighting overseas in World War II. However, I really wanted to just keep it simple and avoid dealing with maintaining historical accuracy and a budget that could have been bigger than Pesticides. So I figured, why not set it in modern day and just focus on 2 brothers instead of 6 unrelated soldiers? While working on Pesticide, I rather enjoyed letting actors just improvise on set. It allowed for better chemistry and a more organic feel to the dialogue. When working on Wayward Sons, I really wanted to include more improv. However, I went a bit too far. We didn't write a script. Now, this was my idea, and ultimately the film has suffered as a result. Everything just felt wishy-washy. There wasn't much to the characters. This was largely due to my lack of direction while filming, as I spent more time being the cinematographer than an actual director. The biggest difference between improv in Pesticide and improv in Wayward Sons was that there was an actual script for Pesticide. The actors actually understood the general gist of the scene and how to go about it, whereas with Wayward Sons, they had no idea what I wanted out of the scene. Only 2 days were planned to film the entire feature-length movie. We ended up needing 6 days to film everything, and even then, only around 10% of what we actually filmed is usable. The teaser trailer that we released is actually somewhat outdated. The film will now be in black and white, not color, and unfortunately, due to extensive reshoots and rewrites, Wayward Sons is getting pushed back from a 2022 release to a 2023 release. Now, this isn't a bad thing. I would much rather spend another year working on a project in order to perfect it and work out any kinks and problems than just rushing something out and releasing it and really not having it up to par and where I want my level of quality to be with my films. Now, when I say reshoots and rewrites, these aren't a bad thing. The film itself isn't awful, in fact, far from it. It's a very personal film. I just feel like there were aspects of the movie that could have been greatly improved and expanded upon, so we're going back to the drawing board. I'm currently writing a full-length, 120-page screenplay for the film that incorporates what usable footage and improvised scenes we have with new and improved scenes. The thing is, it's a horror film that isn't scary, until now. I can't go into all the details because I don't want to ruin the surprise. So make sure to stay tuned for more updates.